This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski,
featuring former FBI Special Agent and Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke.
Just a couple of weeks ago, we saw the trial was open to begin at some point here in the Michigan case of the teenager who went and killed his classmates. The two parents in that case now going to be brought up on charges of giving their child access to a firearm that he was able to use, even though they knew there was mental health problems. Just the other day, we saw another one, a mom of an 11-year-old shooting suspect being charged. Very light charges, but charges nonetheless, second-degree misdemeanor, keeping an unlocked gun near a child, in which the 11-year-old took the gun out to football practice and fired at some of his classmates that he was had a conflict with. Thank God no one died. But the parents being charged. Surprisingly, this is somewhat of a new concept. I would think this would have been a concept for quite some time, and we have seen it on and off, but holding them responsible when their kid gets their hand on something and something actually does happen. Number one, why do you think this has taken so long for us to get to a point of possibly a case that will set some precedent, especially in Michigan, for parents being held responsible when their children are given or get their hands on weapons that end up taking lives?
Hate to believe, it's unbelievable. It's a second-degree misdemeanor. That just blows my mind that it's not more substantial than that. Yeah. This goes back to everything we've been saying for weeks and months, and that is the decision-making and problem-solving process of this world right now is in big chaos. I mean, the decision-making and problem-solving from the child's point of view is a direct result of what they're learning from their parents. And so parents that think it's appropriate to have a firearm unlocked around children is also a bad decision-making process. I mean, it's just bad all around. I'm glad that they're finally holding households accountable. Another book I read, as everyone knows, I'm a reader. A great book is on Genghis Khan. And during the Mongol Empire, what the laws at the time are actually pretty profound and impactful. And that was they held households accountable for the people inside the households and their actions. In other words, if you had someone inside a household that went out and murdered someone, the entire household was held in account for that, for letting that person outside the house. And we're especially in the area of firearms and things that can do harm to others. I think we're starting to maybe see a better flavor of, hey, we got to start learning how to police our own and stop placing it on society, because society and police departments, law enforcement, public officials, they can't police everyone. We got to do something to help each other out at that grassroots level that starts in the family, because if we don't, this continued chaos will continue to erupt.
And that's interesting, taking a look at the unit as a whole. I know the arguments, I can already hear them with that statement of, well, I work, I can't control this, I can't control that. I mean, all of us work. A lot of us have extremely busy lives and multiple children. But some of us seem to find ways of making it work, and some don't go out, and we don't even really think about these sort of things, because the character of the people that we are with, we know they're not someone that's going to do that. But then you have the character, especially in that case in Michigan, James and Jennifer Crumbly and their son, who went in and executed several people. They knew this child had mental health problems, and somehow, in their infinite wisdom, thought, let's buy him a firearm. I mean, certainly we need punishment for this sort of thing, but at the end of the day, and in no way am I saying don't go after these people and don't do it. I'm not making an excuse. I think there needs to be some precedent set here. But at the same point, is it going to reverberate in terms of having effects on other parents? Is this going to be, oh gosh, maybe I really should think of this because those one parent, that couple over there went to jail. I don't know. It seems to be kind of almost the windshield wiper analogy with people or headlights. When it's raining and storming and they don't have the windshield wipers on or their headlights, there's no amount of crash videos one can show them to make them naturally go, I should turn my lights and windshield wipers on.
Yeah. If you're going to do something or have something in your household, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're going to, as a family unit, and however that family looks, it doesn't even matter. If the household is going to bring something into the house, whether it's a new pet, a firearm, a new appliance, a vehicle, whatever, as a group unit, you have to think through and project out potential impact of these things in a house. And then you start mitigating, risks that these things have. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes energy, but it's also responsibility of teaching how to problem solve and think through different challenges that we face in life that pop up. For instance, with firearms, I'm retired FBI. I've had firearms in my household for my entire professional career. I have two now grown children that were very young. I was in the FBI before my children were born.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this, when we were still living in New York, we trained my children, and what we did was our guns were always locked up in the house. My house is extremely safe house, but things happen. And they also go to friends and families' houses that I'm friends and family with other law enforcement and people that own firearms. Does that mean that they're that conscientious in their house as that we are in mine? No, not necessarily. So first of all, we trained our children in our own house about how to respect things that look out of the norm. In other words, we taught our children to baseline what normal looks like, to be present, to see things, and to be accountable for those things around us. And let an adult, let someone know who can be objective in our lives that something looks different, something stands out, and one, have the courage and fortitude to do that and speak up when those things happen. And then I taught my children about firearms since they have to be in the house. And then the big thing I taught them to do is, if a parent isn't around and you happen to see one somewhere, what do? And you immediately don't touch it, and you go get an adult. You go get someone that's responsible, that you trust in your life, to go and tell them about it. And I ran tests in my house. We left my unloaded handgun out one afternoon, and very conscious of it. As my kids were coming in from school, I wasn't home. My wife's in another room, and we wanted to test what they would do. And they did the right thing. And we said, this is exactly what it was. This was a test. It was unloaded. It was safe, but we wanted to make sure they could do and get some repetitions, as we've talked about, reps in how to behave and how to problem solve through challenging situations that they might face. And we did that. And I constantly had discussions every time something comes up in the news, like cases like this, when my kids were younger. They said, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to call you? Why do I have to check in here? Why, when I get to someone's house, do I need to check in? I said, because I can tell you a really bad story when it goes sideways. Do you want to hear a bad story? They said, no, I don't want to hear a bad story. I said, okay, then this is what you're going to do. So it comes down to learning together as a family unit, whatever that family looks like, how to work through challenges and problem solve.
I completely agree. What about the many homes out there that don't have necessarily competent parents like yourself, thoughtful parents, people who are thinking ahead of the what ifs and the what possibilities and cause and effect, if they're not going to get it at home simply because the parents are not equipped to deliver that sort of message, which is obviously a reality for many of them. Where do kids get that? Should that be something that there's more talk of in school, or where is it? Because I completely agree. If all of us did the same sort of thing that you're talking about, it would be wonderful, but that is not the reality. You are the exception to the rule with that level of care and being a teacher to your children.
Yeah, it's like you and I have talked about, sadly, numerous times, is the foster parent systems, the school systems, all the money that our tax money goes to fund all these organizations, institutions. It needs to be from the grassroots at every single level. So you have a teaching moment when each of these things come up, and then it has to be built upon in every aspect of our society to realize that, hey, you're not going to solve the problem. You're not going to go from 0 to 100 to solve a problem. It's not just going to snap your finger and happens overnight. It'd be great if it, like you said, it happens in the home, but if it doesn't happen in the home, things like this need to be thought of and educated at an appropriate age level with kids in school, with daycare centers and all these things. And I know a lot of them are at different levels. I mean, much more than when you and I grew up. I mean, heck, this wasn't an issue when I grew up. There's people beating each other up on the playground was the extent of it. And so it just constantly being educated about it, but also in a responsible way at every single level. I mean, and this is where I think when you have adults and other people involved in children's lives that aren't necessarily parents, having them to be alert and have the courage to speak up as well. My wife's a teacher, and it's easy to see, if Johnny or Jane come into school and something's a little off at home or something a little different, is just have a conversation with other professionals about what they're seeing. What can we do? What do you think's going on? In a very respectful and a very let's be there to help solve pain points in people's lives sort of way. But yeah, it takes a great effort, and it takes a heck of a lot of courage, because people in this day and age are very afraid to reach out and touch a potential pain point until it's too late.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial free,
so you can binge on true crime
until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.